Tomorrow, of course, is the 3 years since this crisis has started, and more than 100,000 lives have been claimed in this conflict, and 10,000 of them are children, and innocent children who have been drawn into this and have no choice but to continue fighting throughout it. Now, after so many years of violence, our leaders, both in Australia and across the world, they have to know that we aren't giving up on Syria, that we must bring an end to this bloodshed and to those people who need our support the most. We must act on this last anniversary to make it the last anniversary of the bloodshed.
What we need to do is to remember that Syria is the site of the worst humanitarian crisis of the 21st century. Inside Syria, we know that well over 100,000 people have been killed, including 10,000 children. The UN has actually stopped counting the deaths now because it's just too hard to verify with poor access across the country, and it means that these figures don't even come close to capturing what the real human cost of this conflict has been. 9.3 million people are in desperate need of humanitarian assistance. That's nearly half of Syria's population of 21.4 million people. Nearly half of the population of a country is in need of humanitarian assistance. More than 4.2 million children are at risk inside Syria, and half of all the Syrian refugees are actually children. 6.5 million people, almost 1/3 of all Syrians, have been forced to flee their homes and are now displaced within Syria, living in temporary accommodation and in schools. Another 2.5 million people, more than the entire population of Western Australia, have managed to flee but are living in a state of absolute limbo as refugees in neighbouring countries such as Jordan, Lebanon, Turkey. Lebanon is hosting 1 million Syrian refugees, and this is an enormous contribution that, given that Lebanon only has a population of 4 million people. 25% of the population of Lebanon is now made up of these refugees. Despite the terrible toll of this crisis, the international community is not responding. The UN launched a humanitarian appeal, which was aiming to raise $6.5 billion, and this is dramatically underfunded. Only 12% of the humanitarian needs are able to be met given the lack of funding. Peace talks in Geneva have stalled, and civil society and women's groups have so far been excluded from these talks. And all of you here know how important it is, the role that women and civil society can play to help achieve resolution and to rebuild. The UN Security Council has made some recent progress calling for increased humanitarian access inside Syria, and we have Australia to thank for that. But on most issues relating to Syria, the Council has been bitterly divided.
So we know that millions of Syrian children have seen their loved ones suffer pain, suffer injury. Many have actually seen their family members, their friends, their school teachers, people that they trust and people that they love die in front of them. Those are scars that will stay with these kids for a long time. We as an international community have a responsibility to make sure that we can actually provide them not only with the humanitarian assistance they need right now, but actually with the support that they will need long into the future. It is not something that we can walk away from. It is not something that we feel that we should be able to accept as a status in the conflict at the moment in terms of what that is doing to the millions of children. Many of them have struggled just to find places of safety. You hear stories of children as they cross borders to become refugees, the hardship that they have suffered, the emotion that they carry. Their journeys physically have not been easy. Their journeys emotionally have certainly not been. They live with a lot of uncertainty. Many of them have been displaced for almost the full 3 years of the conflict, either internally within Syria or in neighbouring countries of refugees. Many children are actually becoming the breadwinners of their families. So in Australia, most kids when they're in year 9, year 10 go out and get a casual job, get some pocket money, help them pay for their movie tickets on the weekend. This is not a casual job for these children. Kids as young as 5 and 6 are being sent out to be the main breadwinners for their families. We know that that's also physical labour. It's not a nice check-out chick job that you can get. This is actual manual labour that children as young as 5 and 6 are doing. We have an opportunity to help break the impasse that has previously paralysed the international community on Syria. There's been a recent UN security resolution that's a diplomatic breakthrough, but it's not a humanitarian breakthrough, and the humanitarian crisis will continue unless we have a peaceful solution.